Hello and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Dawn Hokaj. Dawn, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start with my little icebreaker question, which I ask all of my guests. Would you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
Oh my goodness. So I would say whether you consider this a hobby, this is something I also do like every day, is my spiritual practice. And that can look like a million different things. But I love just tuning in to the energy of everything around me, seeing that divinity, that spark of source in everything, whether it's in another human in the grocery store or in, the squirrel that my cat is trying to, chase through the window, or like the trees when the wind blows through it. It's just seeing that and feeling that connectedness, and that just brings me so much feeling of oneness and joy, and ultimate peace.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yes, that does tie into what you do as a spiritual coach and energy practitioner. So I would love for you to share your journey of how you got to this place where you are today.
Yeah, it's a long story. So I started out growing up in South Georgia, and my family was Southern Baptist, and the messages I was getting of what was being said in church, and then how the people who went to this church behaved and acted, um, were not the same, right? So that I was beginning to pick up on that hypocrisy, and that truly turned me away from God, from religion. I mean, really turned me away. Uh, so from there, um, I just kind of moved through life in a very analytical, very independent way. And it wasn't until um, like my mother passed away, when I had just not enlisted, but I was just commissioned in the Air Force. And she was my guiding star. She was the person I did everything for. And that just totally broke me down, like to a point where I had no clue like what was going on in my life. I was questioning everything. Um, and and then a few years later, once I was trained in the F-16, my engine quit and I had to eject because I wasn't close enough to an airport to land. And that also was a kind of just a huge shake to my system that really made me start thinking, what what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? And I realized I was still kind of perpetuating that desire to make my mother proud, and she wasn't, even here with me anymore. Um, and so there was a lot of turmoil within me. I began to question why I was in the Air Force. Was this really what I wanted? Um, I was married and then had two children after the ejection. And then, really, after my second, in addition to the post traumatic stress that I was experiencing undiagnosed, had not seen anyone about, because at the time it was not something that the military looked at. This was in the early 2000s. And um, so I had to make the hard choice to like leave the Air Force. And um, because it was not bringing me that fulfillment that I wanted. And then after my second child, I believe there was a little bit of postpartum depression in there, and I just got sunk into um, a huge pit of desperation, depression, anxiety, insomnia. And it lasted for quite a while. Uh, I didn't want to do anything. Nothing brought me joy. I disconnected from my husband. Um, the only thing that I could do was show up for my kids. That was the only thing I could do. I couldn't show up for myself, but I could show up for my kids. And then it took some really persistent family and friends to basically keep saying, hey, what's going on? You are not you. And that, thank goodness for them, I realized that there was something going on, and I wasn't going to be able to pull myself out of it by myself, which is what I had been taught to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mother was like, you're independent. You don't need a man to take care of you. You don't need anybody to take care of you. You can be whatever you want. And so I, had to break down those kind of beliefs and those values that I had, and then seek help. And I had some amazing professionals that helped me get to remission from depression. And I realized there was more. There was more that I had dissociated from my entire life. And so through that, it began to open up those, big questions of what's out there, and what does this all mean? Why was my mother taken away from me? Why did I eject? Why did I get thrown into that, huge depressive state? And so that's when I first started dipping my toe into personal development. And from there, involved in some different programs, and got myself to like a whole happy place where I didn't need medication anymore. I didn't need therapy. I didn't need counseling. Obviously, there are times when that is needed, and I'm not against ever doing that again. But at that point, I was, I had the resources. I knew how to tap into that. And I started learning about all different types of religions and spiritual practices. And I was in a personal development program for relationships. So I was learning how to deal with people, how to build that connection. And then I was realizing there's something missing. And like, even though I was happy, and I could interact with people, and I could see things from a different perspective, I was really working on, not being judgmental. However, I still felt like there was something missing. And that's when I had my first Reiki session. And it was actually, the practitioner was in the US. I was living in Abu Dhabi at the time because that's where my husband was stationed. And I just remember, so we talked on the phone. She told me what was going to happen. And then she said, okay, give me a call in about an hour. And she goes, just relax or whatever. And I remember 10 minutes after we hung up and she was going to start the session, I just felt like this jolt of energy all through me. And I'm not somebody who's like, I'm not an excited person. I mean, I can be excited about things and get excited, but that was very new for me and very different. And then that led to some digging deeper into things, which I'd always loved. Like, I always loved rocks. And I took a few geology courses in college. And it just started opening up that world of energy work with crystals. And I can't tell you how many like crystal certifications I've taken, just because I love it so much and I love the science of it as well. And then, so then that led to other energy, learning about other energy modalities, getting certified in a few different forms of Reiki. I'm a Reiki master teacher. And then even then going any further and looking at, okay, what other modalities are out there, and even working with some galactics that have been a technique that's been taught to me and I've been certified in. So that's where
Wow.
I am now.
Wow, amazing. I love all the things that you've sort of well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. But I love where you are today with all of the certifications that you have, especially around rocks. Because Chris, because what the thing that you mentioned that I really was like, huh, was when you mentioned the crystals, but also the scientific aspect of it. Because, I think oftentimes people think crystals and they're like, well, yeah, okay, healing crystals, the different types, like what they do, but it's a little bit more on the woo-woo side. So I sort of loved how you brought in the scientific aspect. And I was wondering if you might share a little bit more around what the scientific aspect of crystals is, because I don't think a lot of people know what that even is, that's even a thing.
Yeah, I would love to. Well, first, you know, back when we had analog watches and clocks, usually there you hear quartz movement, right? And that because quartz has a specific frequency, it keeps the clock or the watch running on time. Um, and so, and quartz specifically has a, let me grab my baby. So this is a clear quartz, and quartz specifically, the way it forms, this is like the C-axis, it grows upward, and the way the molecules stack on each other from a quartz crystal is they kind of stack in a spiral, and then they stack and they spiral up, and then the natural formation of a quartz comes into a point with six sides. And so as those molecules stack around and around, that it actually creates almost like a little mini vortex inside that comes to the point. So that's why clear quartz is such a great amplifying crystal for whatever you want. Most people, if they program a crystal, they program a clear quartz crystal because has that amplifying, and the amplifying comes from the way that the molecules are set on each other and then come to this point. So it's a natural kind of vortex up through the point. And so you can then, in addition to the energy of the crystal, every crystal vibrates at a certain frequency, which is, great for different aspects. The frequency of the color also affects the different aspects or properties of that crystal. But with quartz, it's great for amplifying because of its actual structure. So I love that. I love learning about how they form, how the actual how each molecule is for different crystals is how they actually the shape that they naturally take. And you can bring in then either numerology, you can bring in sacred geometry depending on the shape. And so it's not just the energy of that particular type of crystal, it's also the energy of the shape it takes form. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. I thank you for that like technical explanation, because I'm like, I had no idea about any of that. And so, wow, that's really cool. Like the fact that the shape is actually driven by how the crystal forms. And I'm like, I didn't even realize those points on quartz were actually the natural shape. Like, you think that people like shape them that way.
And a lot of times they do, but like this has been polished, but this is
Mhm.
it's been polished, but this is the natural kind
Mm.
of shape of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's so cool.
yeah.
Thank you for that lesson in
Yeah.
crystals.
And yeah, so I usually like I have little quartz
Oh,
points on the ends
nice.
of my earrings too that
Oh, cool.
just make me feel great.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. All right. I know that was a little bit of a side hot topic, but I was like super fascinated when you mentioned that. But I'm sure everybody learned something new today about crystals. Um, but I do want to ask you now that you've got all these certifications, you have these different energy healing modalities that you've learned, but you also are a coach as well. And I would love to learn a little bit maybe more about sort of that, how you integrate sort of the coaching, the spiritual, the crystals, because and like the energy, the different energy modalities, because you have like a huge wealth of offerings. And I was just curious, like, how do you incorporate that into your practice? What does your practice look like?
So usually I offer a mix of coaching and energy work sessions. And I really feel like they complement each other because, um, as we both know, who've have received lots of coaching and are coaches, um, it's really great at accessing that cognitive piece. And there are things that you can help facilitate your clients to help rewire certain things. And what I've found is that there can be energetic blocks that prevent that rewiring, right? That prevent that. And so the energy work really complements the coaching in that it can work on helping remove those blocks in the subtle body, so that the cognitive work you're doing in coaching um, really can take hold much quicker.
Mm.
And what I do, my energy sessions they're like a hodgepodge of everything I know, and it pretty much, I mean, it's intuitive, so it's what I feel is needed, like specifically, okay, this is what my client wants to work on, or I see that this is what they're struggling with in the coaching. And then I bring that in, and I either usually everything I do is within this structure, this energetic structure of a crystal chamber that it is facilitated by the Arcturians. And but within that, I bring Reiki. I bring all different frequencies of crystals. I bring different divine rays in those frequencies. I bring in frequencies of various ascended masters, archangels, um, gods and goddesses, as well as my guides and the guides of those I'm working with. Um, I bring in sound frequency. Uh, just I tailor it for what is needed or what just comes to me, and that's what kind of I bring to a session. Did that
Wow,
answer your
amazing.
question?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely. And I love sort of obviously yes. I love as an intuitive life coach myself, I love that you use intuition as such a big piece of what is it that the client needs or what is it that is blocking them from moving forward. And that's the thing that you bring because you do have like all these different modalities, tools, methods that then you can like super customize to the exact client and what it is that they need. So that's amazing that you have this sort of huge breadth of like offerings that you can then, find the right thing that's the exact fit for that one
Mm.
client and what it is that they need. So I love that. I did want to go back and ask you about one thing that you mentioned with a little bit of a smile. You mentioned the Arcturians, and I've heard of this. I've looked into it a little bit. I found like this music. I think it's a meditation music thing with the frequencies on the Arcturian healing. Chamber sounds, which I love listening to. But for people out there who have no idea what we're talking about, would you mind maybe sharing a little bit more about what that's all about?
Sure. And I think we probably listened to some of the same things, and that was kind of my introduction. Um, I believe one of our mentors actually kind of said she listened to some
Yeah.
Arcturian healing sounds. So that was a kind of door opening to that. Um, but I've also, as much as I've loved, like, because I grew up in the country, rocks and dirt and just being outside, I also love the stars and just staring up, like living in South Georgia with no lights and just looking out and feeling a connection to that. Um, and so once I had this kind of introduction to the Arcturians, that was kind of my introduction to many different galactic beings that are here to kind of help humanity ascend to that next level. And Arcturus is a star in the Boots constellation, and so the group comes from that star system, and they are um, multidimensional beings of light that are they're considered like the master healers of the universe, well, or the galaxy, because Arcturus is in our galaxy. But so they have many different ways, and you could probably search and see like on Google or Chat GPT and see how many different people are working, especially practitioners are working with Arcturians um, to bring this healing and ascension for humankind forward. And so this was one of my other mentors had this download from her Arcturian guide, and then she facilitated that teaching to a group and certified us. And so um, that is kind of what I do. And there are many different, like I said, there is a crystal chamber, which is an energetic chamber that I tune in with the Arcturians and the person I'm working with, and we set the intention, calibrate the chamber, and so that during the session, it is kind of that safe space. So it's it's the place that the healing occurs in, but it also has its own energetic frequencies that it holds. So that's a little bit about that. And specifically, there's a lot of nervous system regeneration, um, hormone harmonization, complete aura repair, and a whole host of other things that we can work on.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for explaining that. Because I mean, all I know about Arcturians is sort of what I've like very high level and sort of the music that I've listened to or the and so I thank you for sort of explaining a little bit more about, because that when you mentioned the crystal chamber earlier, I was like, ooh, what is that? So thank you for explaining what that is. So that's really,
Mm-hmm.
really cool. And so from here, because you mentioned, some of the things that it can help with healing. I'm interested to find out, who are the people that you work with? Like, who are like, what are these what are your clients like? I don't know if I'm asking that the right way, but who are the types of people that seek out your healing? Who is it that you work with?
Um, so I am mainly focused on professional women um, who've had a similar journey to me, who have gotten to a place in their life where they felt like they were, checking all the boxes, and this is what success should look like, or this is what people tell them success should like, and they're just like, eh, I'm not feeling it. I don't feel happy. I don't feel fulfilled. Um, so I work with them to help them create either that career or that life that truly gives them that space to breathe, gives them that space to remember who they are, gives them that space to create what truly is their authentic truth that is not dictated by someone else.
Mm, yeah. I love that. And I like what you said just a second ago around helping them remember who they are. Because I think that is a big piece of that journey when people are, like you said, they've checked all the boxes, but there isn't that happiness and fulfillment because they haven't been living their true authentic lives. They've sort of been living the societal expectations maybe of like what a life should look like, and that's not really, it's not what's authentic for them to and helping them remember who they truly are in order to find out what it is that is what is going to truly make them happy. And so I was wanting to find out if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe a little bit about, how what does that look like? How are you able to help people like remember who they are to be able to move forward? Because that often is the big challenge, like really digging down in there. Is there like, and I don't know, there's probably not any one thing because everybody has their own challenges and different journeys, but is there like maybe any one thing that really sticks out where people feel the most stuck in order to help them sort of get to finding that inner authentic sort of stuff down hidden self?
Yeah, what I find is a lot of people are kind of frustrated with where
Mm,
they are or where they've been. Um, and that actually what I found that is like their own prison that keeps them stuck
mm,
because they don't have that awareness that it's because they're frustrated that then they can start to unravel that and then move forward. And if they can't see that gift, um, then that path to remembering who they are, to listening to themselves, to being able to tune in to their own inner guidance, whether you see that as your inner guidance or guidance from that creator being that you believe in. um, that frustration, that thinking I shouldn't be here, that thinking
mm.
maybe what's wrong with me, that I'm not in a different place, that is kind of the key. So we're human, right?
Yeah.
And with all the healing that we have done, we're still going to have days where we want to, kind of smack somebody. Not that we're going to do it, but then we don't then chastise ourselves, or we don't kind of go down that shame of, oh my goodness, how could I have done that? Or how could I be like that? I supposedly have done all this healing, and then that means I haven't done healing. And that's just not true.
Mm.
We're human. We are not Buddha. We are not Jesus. So we're going to have those days. And if we can't love ourselves through those times,
Yeah.
um, then we're not going to be able to then start moving forward in ascending ourselves to that ultimate like place of continuing to reach that just love and oneness.
Mm. Yeah, I like that you brought that up because that we're all human and we're not always going to be perfect because I think you're right. Like as people who have gone the journey and are healers, feel like they can't have bad days anymore, or feel like if they get upset or angry or frustrated, that means they did screw up somewhere, and like you said, they haven't done the work. But that's just not true at all. And getting to a place of acceptance of, yeah, we're still human and it's okay to have a bad day. It still happens. So I love that you shared that because it does, right? Like normalizes the human experience. Like everybody's human. Everybody's going to have bad days and that's totally fine. And just to be able to accept that, like people need to be able to accept the fact that even if you've done a lot of work, nobody's perfect or everybody's perfect in their own way. And that's exactly what who you are. So thank you for sharing that. And that actually I love that. And so, I love where we've come in the conversation, and it is time to start wrapping up. So, before we end today, I just wanted to open it up for you if there's any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience today?
Yes, another mentor kind of gave me this question, like when that humanness is really like raising its head, and um, instead of like dispersing your energy and going to all those places, why am I thinking this, or why did I show up this way, or what's wrong with me, really kind of bring that energy inward and just lovingly ask, like, what does my human need?
Mm.
And really sit and listen. And if it's a chocolate bar, that's okay, right? If it's, I really need to soak in a bath, then that's fine too. Um, and really strengthening that listening and then taking care of yourself that way.
Mm. Mm. I love that. Thank you so much. A great reminder for self-care practices, always a great thing. All right. Well, thank you, Dawn, again for being with me today. It has been such a pleasure chatting with you. I have loved the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to offer all of your listeners, I offer a 90-minute crystal chamber session where we could go through whether it's, like I said, that complete nervous system regeneration or complete hormone harmonization or repair, or something that I really like. It's a quantum timeline harmonizer. Um, I want to offer that at half price to your listeners. So I will get you that link so anyone who's interested can book that with me. And also I'll leave with you like any way people can contact me as well in your show notes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for offering that special gift for our listeners. I will definitely have all the links to find Dawn and that special offer in the show notes. So thank you again.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.